So this is what my game looks like with default settings, and this is what my game looks like with my settings. I've been playing this game, how long has this game been out? 8 years? So if this game has been out 8 years, I've been playing for 7. I've played competitively, although nowadays I kind of really play more casual, but if you do tend to be more competitive, I will recommend settings that you could use and that I used to use when I played more competitively. I do play on Xbox, but all of these settings apply to PlayStation, and I don't know much about Switch, but they should still apply to Switch as well. Alright, let's get started. Blood web interaction behavior. I don't know why you would ever put this on hold. It's obviously, I guess it's preference, but press is something that the console community, has been asking for at this point, years. They finally put it in the game, and I don't know why you wouldn't use it. What this means is when you're on the blood web, usually on console, or at least how it used to be on console, you'd have to hold down the button to select what item in the blood web you wanted to buy. That always made the blood web process a lot slower and more tedious than it was on PC, because on PC it was always just you click and it was done. So lots of people have complained about that, and they finally put it in the game. You can put it on hold. I really recommend putting it on press. Heartbeat visual support. So I have this on for a couple of reasons. Nowadays, like I said, I only play really casual, and often I'm not really paying full attention to the game. Maybe, there's something going on in my room, or I'm watching, I don't know, a YouTube video, or I'm scrolling through something while I'm on a generator. I'm just not fully paying attention, and it's nice to have that visual on screen to help me kind of lock in whenever something is happening in the game. For a competitive reason, you want this on. It just kind of helps you determine when the killer really is nearby. It kind of doesn't leave any question, right? Often in this game, a killer can be just barely in your terror radius, and maybe their music is so quiet that you might not even hear it. So it's nice to have that visual support, so there's no question about it at all if you actually heard what you thought you heard. And it can give you a lot of information in that way. So I really don't recommend turning this off ever, unless it really just annoys you. But there is a setting later on that if it does annoy you, you can make the icon a bit smaller on your screen, so maybe that would relieve that a bit, and it would still allow you to have the benefits of having this on. Dialogue subtitles, kind of a preference thing. I could turn it on, but I just don't really care. That's not really what the game is about. If it was like a story game and they were saying things that actually benefited me, then I would probably have it on. I just prefer it off. If you're playing a little bit more competitively, you definitely want to turn this off. You want to give yourself every possible advantage that you can to free up space on your screen. Also, it's just less distracting. It keeps your eyes focused on what they need to be focused on, rather than looking down at the text. But if you don't mind it, then just keep it on. I'm going to skip down to large text. That's a preference thing. Colorblind mode. This is something that I made a whole entire video on. I'm going to have that in the eye in the top right now. And then it'll also be linked in the description. You can pause this video, open that up in a new tab, and watch that really quickly. Or you can watch that video after this one. I think I do a pretty good job diving into the benefits, the pros and cons, really, of every mode that there is. One thing that I will say in that video, it's a very old video, so it's not quite outdated. Everything that I say still applies. There's one thing that I want to clear up. I believe it's Deuteranopia. Throughout that whole video, I basically write it off as just not even an option, because it makes everything look kind of orange. I want to go ahead and retract that statement, because I believe that there is some sort of advantage that you can have. I've seen many people, I haven't personally, again, I play casually now, so I don't really care, but I've seen many people in competitive, intense situations turn this setting on to the max intensity, so that they can see, for example, the hatch, or if it's against a pinhead, they're looking for the box. In intense situations where it's kind of down to the wire, you need every competitive advantage that you can get, and Deuteranopia, in some situations, actually gives that to you. But take a look at that video and form your own opinion on which setting you would like and which intensity you would like. We're going to move to online. Crossplay, I have that on. So in my experience, the games where I'm against a PC killer are more fun and interesting than console killers. Something I noticed with console killers, they have significantly worse internet, because that's just kind of how console is. Console is a cheaper alternative to playing video games, which is okay, but it often can make latency a problem, and you'll notice yourself getting hit through windows or from far away when you shouldn't have been hit. Things like that, little small things that kind of change the entire game, and it gets to the point where it becomes very unbearable. Another thing about crossplay is when I have it off and I'm only playing with killers that are on console, I get longer queue times, and it about triples the odds for me to get in the game with a killer that tunnels and camps, not face camps anymore, but proxy camps. I think the reason for this is because most console gamers are playing casually, since that is what the console is made for. And if they're playing casually, they don't really try too hard. You know, they don't want to think too much, and tunneling is sort of an easy thing to do. You don't really have to think too much, and it's a very good, very effective strategy. And it's very frustrating when you get half of the games that you get, one person is being tunneled out at a time while no one else is even being injured. It's a little frustrating. So I like to have that on. Dead by Daylight is one of those games that PC players don't have too much of an advantage. In shooters, they have a very big advantage because they can look around quicker and more accurately, which is why often console and PC are separated in shooters, but in Dead by Daylight, there isn't much of a difference. So I don't believe crossplay off is necessary. If you want to be even more nitpicky than what I said about the subtitles, then you can turn off player names. Alright, moving on to graphics. Something that I've always noticed about this game is that it just always seems a little blurry, especially when it gets, further back in space. It just seems like the edges of everything sort of start to fade out. I had this turned on at 100%. It's definitely a bit of preference, but I think it just looks so much nicer. It just makes everything look a lot better. UI scale, default is 100. I have this turned down just a little bit. This is what I was saying earlier for people that the heartbeat, visual heartbeat, kind of bothers them. You can turn down your UI scale, and it'll make that icon and every other icon on your screen just a little bit smaller. I like having this on. I had this on when I was playing competitively, but I still kept it on just because I kind of like how it looks. I think it makes everything just look a little better. I mean, that's just my opinion. Obviously, the only thing that really matters is the in-game HUD scale. The UI scale, I mean, that doesn't really matter. Skill check scale, if anything, it would be better to maybe have this a little bit bigger, not too big, obviously, but it might help to have this a little bigger. But like I said, I'm not so competitive anymore, and I just like things to look good and feel good. And for me, this is what I've decided. But if I was playing competitively, this doesn't really matter. I would have this 80%, possibly even lower, and skill check scale, I'd have this 100%, maybe a little more, 110. Yeah, you want to be nitpicky, turn off player names visibility. If you don't want to be distracted by loud noises mid-game when you're trying to focus, turn off these notifications. Audio, I like my menu music at 25. I think it's really loud normally, and it kind of is annoying, so I have this turned down. Main volume just depends on your headphone settings. The thing is, I have this at 100%, but I only really adjust the volume on my actual headphones. My headphones have a little dial on them that I can adjust the headphones volume, and that's pretty much the only time I ever adjust volume. So I don't really mess with this because I don't really need to. Headphones, So if you have headphones, obviously turn this on. I cannot recommend having headphones enough in this game. In this game, especially with killers that are stealthy, you really need headphones, and you need directional audio. It can make a whole world of difference when you can hear things while you're in a chase or while you're on a gen. Audio is a huge thing in this game. It's a huge thing in most competitive games, but in this game it's a huge thing, and it can give you a lot of information. For killers, it can help you track a survivor if it's a loop where you can't see them over it, and they make some sort of weird play, or if they're doubling back, you can see what they're doing and you can hear them. If you're a survivor, you can hear a stealth killer coming. If you're in chase with, for example, Ghostface, and he's still cloaked, and you can't quite knock him out of it, it's very important to be relying on your directional audio in those situations, because you have nothing else to rely on. So I really recommend, if you can, try to get headphones or earbuds of some kind, some sort of directional audio. Invert y-axis, that's just a preference. If you like that, you're kind of a freak. But so I want to discuss camera sensitivity. Sensitivity might even be the main reason why you're watching this video. It's a huge thing, especially in Dead by Daylight, to have your camera sensitivity be comfortable and effective for each individual. So I want to give parameters. I would say you can go up to 100%, but don't go below 55. You can go, well, don't go below 50. 55 is recommended. I got a taste of what it was like to play Dead by Daylight on PC. And on PC, you can flick, while you're in chase, you can flick back and forth between looking forward at where you're going and looking behind you at where the killer is. And if you have your sensitivity on 55% on console, you can't really do that. I mean, you can do it, but it's not... You have to be very careful when you do it, because it takes so long to go from facing forward to facing backwards. It takes a long time to make a 180-degree turn. So having my camera on 100%, it definitely took some adjusting, and it took a lot of time for me to work my way up to 100. But I really like how I can turn quickly, and I can track where the killer is, so I like to have that extra advantage. Also, I've just gotten used to it, so to make it a little bit slower would be a little bit... It would make it harder on me, and it definitely takes a lot more learning, but you can absolutely hit perfect 360s when you have 100% sensitivity. When you have more like 50, 55, 60, upwards to 75, maybe even 80, your 360s are easier to do, because your camera motion is so fluid, and a lot of your movement in a 360 relies on your camera movement. So it's easier to do when you have a slower sensitivity, but you can, if you get used to 100%, it can actually have a lot more benefits. So it's a preference thing. Competitively, I've always used 100%, but a lot of other competitive Dead by Daylight players use across the board from 50% to 100%. I've seen it pretty much everything. So experiment. If you have a slow sensitivity already, don't start with 100. Your camera will go flying and you won't be able to control it. It'll be a disaster, so don't do that. I would say, if you don't already have a sensitivity that you're comfortable with, set it to 55. See if you can get used to that, see if you like that. 55% is, I think, the only sensitivity where you can hit an Ayrun tech. Maybe you can hit it with a 5-star sensitivity, but it's a lot more difficult. So if you maybe are more of a show-off, flashy sort of player, you might want a slower sensitivity. If you're more of a competitive one, you might want a higher one. If you have a low sensitivity, don't just jump straight up to 100%. Work your way up. So maybe play a game or two with the sensitivity that you have, and then raise it up by 5 every game or every other game, just to slowly get used to it until it's too fast, and then hold off for a bit, get used to that. Just slowly increase it over time. And the goal is that you want to find the sensitivity that feels the best to you. Like I said, there's plenty of people who are really good with a 55%, and there's plenty of people who are really good with 100%. Don't focus too much on your sensitivity, because a lot of people fall for that trap, and I know I did too. Sensitivity does not matter that much. Interaction behavior, I have that on hold. again, I think it was back when I would play competitively, I had this idea that it was faster by like a nanosecond. It was faster to let go of a button than to hit a button. So my thought process was, if I'm on a generator and a killer approaches me, is it faster to hit a button to get off of the generator or to cancel a heal, or is it faster to let go of a button you're already holding? And I found that it was faster to let go. It's very nitpicky, and if you're more comfortable having it on toggle, that's totally fair. It doesn't really matter too much, but I find that having it on hold just makes everything feel a little more smooth. When I have it on toggle, it all feels a bit clunky, but that's just me. Run to cancel, you absolutely want this on. If someone's healing you and a killer approaches, and they don't know that the killer approached, but you do, if you sprint, this will cancel them healing you so you can run away. If you have this off, you'll be trapped in that animation, and you won't be able to leave until the other person stops healing you. Plenty of situations like this where having run to cancel just makes everything a little bit better and a little bit faster. Everything that you do is just like a millisecond or two faster. Killer controls, I have my sensitivity for killer a little bit lower. I find that having it fast is beneficial, but having it too fast ends up causing more problems than good. When I'm in a chase, I need to be able to track people, and if they're trying to 360 me or do some sort of quick movement on me, I need to be able to move my camera quick enough to track them. When I had my sensitivity on 100 though, there was a lot of times where I would look right past someone and the camera would move so quickly that I wouldn't see them. And that's really detrimental in chase if you're trying to watch where someone is and you go from looking to the left of them, looking to the right of them, and you miss them in between. They have just like one more second to break line of sight, and then once they do, it makes it so much more confusing for you. So have the sensitivity high, but not too high, and that's where I found that 80% is a very good sensitivity for that. Once again, interaction behavior is on hold. Input binding. So I have an Elite controller. If you're on PlayStation, I think it's not called an Elite controller. I don't know what you guys call it, but I know it's the same thing. It has paddles on the back of the controller, and each paddle is assigned to the buttons. And the idea is that it keeps your thumb from having to leave the right stick to hit buttons. So you can keep your thumb on the right stick and hit the buttons on the back instead of taking your thumb off of the stick. I've found this is super beneficial. I think it's more beneficial in shooters because being able to look around and do other things while you're looking without having to stop looking is a lot more beneficial in a shooter. But in this game, it still feels nice, and I've gotten used to it, so I like it a lot. But that's something you need to know going into this. But that's something that you need to know, and if you have an Elite controller and you want to know why I picked what settings I picked, or the exact settings I have set on my actual Elite controller itself, I have a whole video for that. Again, it's in the top right, or it's in the description. My run is on left bumper. I think that's default. I just like having my run on left bumper. I haven't found any other button that's as accessible as the left bumper. Also, having your buttons that are important and putting them on bumpers is very quick. The bumpers are easy to press, and you don't have to press down that far for them to activate. Whereas the trigger, for example, you have to press down quite a bit before it actually activates your button press. And it's another nitpicky thing, but there's about, a millisecond or two in between fully pressing down a trigger and fully pressing down a bumper. So it's just faster and smoother to put your important buttons on the bumpers. I have my crouch on left trigger because I don't do that as much as I do running. Since my movement is on left stick and my running is on left bumper, it only makes sense that my crouch be on left trigger so that all of my movement is controlled by my left hand. Use item is on right trigger. I wouldn't want to put it anywhere on the left side because that takes my finger off of left bumper, and when I think of use item, I think the most often that I'm doing that is when I'm self-healing. So if I'm healing myself I wouldn't want to have my run on right bumper and my self-heal on right trigger, because I would have my finger so far off from the bumper, whereas when I have it on the left bumper, my finger is already on it. So I can, if the killer comes up while I'm self-healing, I already have started running. Run on, say, right bumper, and having use item on right bumper, I would have to take my finger off of the right trigger and put it onto the right bumper to start running. And that wastes a couple of milliseconds. Activate ability is on right bumper, and then the second one is on left stick. I don't really use activate ability 2. Most of the builds that I do are pretty simple, so I don't really use this. But I like having it on left stick because it's sort of the same idea where I don't have to take my finger off of the left stick, and I can still activate my ability without having to take my finger off of a stick. My activate ability 1 is on right bumper, because I wouldn't be activating an ability and using an item at the same time, so that wouldn't really be a contradiction. Also, it's nice to have all of those being controlled by the same hand. Activate event ability, whatever. It's the only other button I could put it on, and it kind of just went there, I think, by default. So wiggle right and wiggle left. So this doesn't really make any sense, and competitively you wouldn't want to do this. I find that the little wiggling minigame is more fun when you hit right bumper and left bumper. I don't know why, I just think it's more interesting. But if I was playing competitively, I would probably put them both on right bumper. You know, I haven't really studied this or researched this. I don't know how I would, and I haven't experimented with this at all. But I feel like having both of these on right bumper has made me more accurate with my wiggles, but that would be by a very small margin, so I'm not quite sure. It just feels like I think my wiggling is usually more accurate when it's both on right bumper, or just both on the same button, no matter what that button is. But I find it's more fun when it's on both, so that's up to you. Alright, that is all that I have. If you found this video helpful at all, like the video, and if you want more videos like this, please subscribe. I make tons of videos like this all the time, geared towards console players who play Dead by Daylight. I have videos talking about turning up the brightness, increasing graphics, how to do 360s, how to do window text. Don't forget to watch those videos that I suggested. They're all in the description. Okay, I hope you have a good day.